What if this life, the one you are living right now, is your very last one? Not in a morbid sense, but in a profound, spiritual one. According to ancient wisdom, some souls are on their final journey before achieving ultimate liberation. What are the quiet signs of this final chapter? And could you, unknowingly, be one of them? Have you ever felt like an old soul, wise beyond your years, looking at the frantic pace of the modern world and feeling a quiet, deep sense of detachment? This feeling isn't a flaw. It might just be the most important clue your soul is giving you about where you truly are on your cosmic journey toward enlightenment. Most of us are told that life is about accumulating experiences, wealth, relationships, success. But what if for some of us, the true path is not about accumulating, but about letting go? Buddhist philosophy suggests that for a soul in its final lifetime, the entire purpose of existence shifts, and the signs are not loud miracles, but quiet, unmistakable transformations from within. In the profound depths of Buddhist philosophy, the idea of reincarnation is not just a mystical belief to be accepted on faith. It is a roadmap of spiritual evolution, a grand tapestry woven across countless lifetimes. According to these ancient teachings, every soul is reborn, time and time again, evolving through each life based on its karma, its intentions, and its growing awareness. But what happens when a soul has nearly completed its epic journey? What if you are in your last human life cycle, standing just steps away from nirvana, the ultimate freedom from suffering, the final exhale of a soul that has learned all its lessons and is ready to merge with the truth? While most people are unaware of the deeper stages of their soul's evolution, there are certain unmistakable signs that indicate a person is nearing the end of the karmic loop. These signs are not grand miracles or dramatic, earth-shaking events. They are subtle spiritual shifts, quiet awakenings that reveal a soul no longer tethered by the heavy chains of worldly attachments, ego, or insatiable desire. In this video, we will explore 10 powerful signs, rooted in timeless Buddhist wisdom, that suggest you may be living your final reincarnation. If you recognize even a few of these signs echoing within the chambers of your own being, it may mean your soul is nearing its great awakening, and you are walking the sacred and final path of liberation. Let us begin this transformative journey with the first, and perhaps most common, sign of a soul in its last life cycle. 1. The deep disinterest in materialism. One of the most powerful and clarifying indicators that you are in your final life cycle is a natural, effortless, and deep disinterest in materialism. While much of the world is consumed by the relentless chase for wealth, possessions, fame, and status, a soul nearing the end of its karmic journey begins to feel a strong, almost instinctual, aversion to these pursuits. Crucially, this is not a forced detachment. It is not an act of self-denial or a pious performance. It happens organically, effortlessly. You simply no longer find genuine joy in what once excited the ego. It's as if you've spent countless lives playing a grand, cosmic board game, and you finally realize the money is fake and the prizes are hollow. The game itself no longer holds any thrill, You might notice that the fleeting excitement of shopping, the allure of luxury, or the temporary validation of external praise no longer excite you. In fact, you may feel profoundly drained or disconnected when you are in environments focused heavily on material gain. Instead of striving for more, you begin to crave simplicity. You value meaning, connection, and inner peace above all else. Your attention shifts from the frantic state of having to the peaceful state of being. This is not laziness or apathy. It is the hallmark of profound spiritual maturity. In Buddhism, material attachment is seen as one of the great obstacles to enlightenment. The Buddha himself renounced a royal life of unimaginable luxury because he realized that true, lasting freedom does not lie in possessions, but in the liberation from the craving for them. When your soul starts rejecting materialism on its own, it's a powerful sign that you have already learned the difficult karmic lessons related to greed, attachment, and desire in past lives. This shift also beautifully impacts your relationships. You might feel far less impressed by people who display their wealth or status, and instead find yourself drawn to those who are authentic, humble, and spiritually aware. In conversations, you might find gossip and superficial talk to be almost physically painful. Preferring to discuss life's mysteries, healing, or the nature of truth, you begin to sense, deep in your bones, that nothing outside of you can ever complete you, and that true, unshakable contentment is found only in self-awareness, compassion, and presence. It's not that you hate money or success. You just no longer see them as the source of your happiness or your identity. And this subtle, internal transformation marks a significant step toward liberation. If this resonates with you, keep listening, because the signs only grow deeper from here. 2. A strong pull towards solitude. As a soul nears its final incarnation, one of the most profound shifts that occurs is a growing, undeniable longing for solitude. This is not just the desire to be alone for a few hours to recharge. It is a deep, soul-level craving for silence, for space, and for inner stillness. People who are in their last life cycle often feel most alive, most themselves, when they are alone. This is not because they dislike others, but because they have begun to discover the infinite richness and profound wisdom of their own inner world. You may notice yourself feeling utterly drained after social gatherings. Even if the people around you are kind and well-intentioned, small talk becomes almost intolerable. Constant noise feels like a physical invasion. Crowds can feel overwhelmingly chaotic. Why is this? Your soul is no longer stimulated by external noise. Instead, it finds its true nourishment in reflection, meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in nature and listening to the wind. According to Buddhist teachings, silence is not empty, it is full of answers. The more evolved a soul becomes, the more it seeks silence, because only in that stillness can one observe the true nature of reality without the distorting filters of society, ego, and distraction. This love for solitude is also intrinsically tied to the breakdown of the ego. Earlier in the karmic journey, we seek validation, attention, and relationships to define who we are. But when the soul is approaching its final return, it begins to understand that nothing outside of itself can reflect its true, timeless identity. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. This sacred solitude is the joy of being with yourself. You may find yourself spending more and more time in nature, feeling an inexplicable, wordless bond with trees, rivers, or animals. You might crave hours, even days, without talking, completely disconnected from phones, conversations, or the endless scroll of social media. Some people begin to gently pull away from lifelong friendships or family dynamics, not out of anger or resentment, but out of a deep, instinctual need to protect their newfound peace. This pull towards solitude is not a sign of depression, it is a sign of alignment. And it is one of the clearest indications that your soul is completing its long journey through samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Free, intense emotional sensitivity. Another powerful and unmistakable sign that you may be in your final reincarnation is the blossoming of an intense emotional sensitivity. This is not sensitivity as a weakness, but as a sacred attunement to the pain, the energy, and the experiences of others. In your past lives, you may have needed to develop strength, assertiveness, or detachment to survive, but in this final cycle, your soul begins to awaken to the deep, undeniable interconnectedness of all beings, and with that awakening comes a profound, and sometimes overwhelming, emotional resonance. You might find yourself crying more easily, not just over your own challenges, but over the suffering of others, even strangers on the news. Movies, music, or stories that involve pain, injustice, or profound beauty can stir something so deep inside you it feels ancient. This is not simply empathy. It is a soul-level awareness that the imaginary line between self and other is dissolving. In Buddhist philosophy, this kind of emotional sensitivity is tied to the development of karuna, or universal compassion. As the ego weakens and spiritual insight deepens, your heart becomes more open, more porous. You no longer see people as separate individuals acting out of malice or ignorance. You begin to see them as souls in pain, stuck in the same illusion you once fought so hard to awaken from. This realization can feel overwhelming, especially in chaotic environments. This deep sensitivity may also extend to energy itself. You might feel physically uncomfortable in places with negative vibrations, hospitals, crowded bars, toxic workplaces, all around people who carry heavy, unhealed emotional baggage. You pick up on micro-expressions, unspoken feelings, and subtle energetic shifts that others miss entirely. While the world might label this as being too sensitive, your soul knows it is simply becoming finely tuned. This is spiritual attunement. Your soul may be absorbing these karmic imprints from others not to suffer with them, but to help purify, to serve, and to complete its final lessons in compassion. And with this sensitivity comes a natural, unforced urge to help. You might be drawn to healing professions, acts of service, or simple, random kindness. The pain of others is no longer their problem. It becomes a call from the universe to love more deeply, and you feel that sacred call in your very bones. 4. Unshakable inner peace during chaos. One of the most telling signs that you are in your last life cycle is the emergence of a deep, unshakable sense of inner peace, even when everything around you is falling apart. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not the result of success, a perfect relationship, or financial comfort. It is a state of being that arises from the very core of you and remains largely untouched by external events. Most people panic when life doesn't go according to their plan. They become anxious during uncertainty or enraged when others betray them. But if your soul is nearing liberation, you may begin to notice that you are no longer easily shaken. You respond to life's challenges instead of reacting to them. You may feel disappointment or sadness, but you are not consumed by it. You still feel pain, but you do not suffer the way you used to. Why? Because on a cellular level, you understand the impermanence of all things. This is a core Buddhist teaching. Everything arises, and everything passes away. When this truth moves from being a mere intellectual concept to a lived, experiential reality, you develop a kind of spiritual immunity to chaos. You become the deep, silent ocean that remains unmoved by the turbulent waves on the surface. You stop resisting life's changes. You stop attaching your identity to outcomes. You understand that pain is a teacher, not the punishment. In your final life cycle, peace becomes your default state. You walk into storms with calm eyes. You hold space for the pain of others without collapsing under its weight. You begin to see the world as a dream, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying, but always fleeting. And because you have likely experienced countless lifetimes of drama, karma, and trauma, your soul is simply tired of being disturbed. It yearns only for truth, awareness, and stillness. This doesn't mean you are emotionless. On the contrary, you feel everything more deeply, but you are no longer enslaved by those feelings. Others may find themselves coming to you for advice without knowing why. They feel your calm energy like a balm to their storm. Your presence alone begins to heal, not because you try, but because you are at peace. And true peace is contagious. If you've noticed this profound tranquility blooming within you, even during the most painful chapters of your life, it is more than just maturity. It may be your soul's final, beautiful awakening. 5. A feeling of being different or misunderstood. Have you always felt like you don't quite belong here? Like you are observing the world and its strange rituals rather than being an active participant? This deep, inner sense of being different is one of the most emotionally powerful signs that your soul is nearing its final incarnation. People in their last life cycle often feel like outsiders, even from a very young age, while others were chasing trends, social status, and material gain. You might have found yourself quietly wondering, what is the point of all this? You may feel a profound disconnect from societal norms, a lack of interest in superficial goals, and a deep confusion about the destructive patterns that so many people seem to accept as normal. This feeling of being different is not a flaw. It is your soul's ancient wisdom revealing itself. In Buddhism, As the soul evolves, it begins to detach from the great illusion known as Maya, the veil of consensus reality that keeps people trapped in materialism, ego, and suffering. Those who are awakening from this illusion often experienced a sense of alienation, not because they are broken, but because they are waking up in a world that is still largely asleep. Others might misunderstand you deeply. They may call you too sensitive, too serious, too quiet, or even too intense. They do not see the depth behind your eyes or the timeless weight your soul carries. You might have tried to fit in, but you found that doing so left you feeling hollow and inauthentic. So, slowly, you began to embrace your uniqueness and walk your own path, even if it has been lonely at times. The loneliness that once felt like a wound slowly transforms into a badge of honor. You also might not resonate deeply with your birth family or cultural background. While you may still love them, it often feels as if your soul has outgrown many of the beliefs and patterns they live by. You seek your truth elsewhere, in books, philosophy, meditation, nature, or the sanctuary of solitude. This sign is often painful, because the desire to belong is deeply human, but your soul isn't here to conform. It's here to transcend, and that means walking a path very few will understand. Over time, this loneliness blossoms into spiritual sovereignty. You stop needing the approval of others. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into their boxes. You recognize your uniqueness not as a curse, but as a spiritual gift, a clear sign that you are moving beyond the endless cycle of karma and entering the final stages of your awakening. If you feel like an old soul, wise beyond your years and slightly out of sync with the modern world, know that you are not lost. You are simply evolving. 6. A natural detachment from the ego. In the final stages of the soul's long reincarnation journey, a powerful and often irreversible shift begins to take place. The ego starts to dissolve. Unlike in earlier lifetimes where the ego dominated your decisions, your image, and your sense of worth, in your last life cycle, you begin to see the ego for what it truly is, a temporary, illusory construct. You stop feeling the compulsive need to prove yourself. Titles, appearances, competition, and the constant hunt for validation start to feel unnecessary and even tiresome. It's not that you no longer care about doing well in life, but you realize that your intrinsic value is not tied to how others see you or what you achieve. This natural detachment from the ego is one of the most advanced signs of spiritual evolution. Buddhism teaches that the ego, the sense of a separate I, is the very root of our suffering. It is a tireless narrator, constantly whispering stories of me, my, and mine, and it constantly needs to be fed through attention, control, comparison, and attachment. But a soul that is nearing enlightenment starts seeing through these transparent traps. You may notice that compliments no longer inflate your pride and criticism no longer wounds you as deeply. Why? Because your identity no longer rests on the fragile ground of the external world. It resides in pure, unchanging awareness itself. You may still feel a flicker of anger or a pang of jealousy, But these emotions pass like a light breeze. You no longer identify with them. They are merely passing clouds in the vast, open sky of your consciousness. You stop defending your image and instead, you naturally embrace humility. You start to listen more and speak less. You feel no urge to be better than anyone else, and instead feel a genuine pull to understand and support others, without any personal agenda. This detachment also transforms how you handle failure or rejection, rather than seeing them as personal attacks on your worth. You understand them as opportunities for growth or simply as karmic lessons playing out. Your reactions become quieter, more mindful. You are no longer reactive. You are reflective. This deep calmness is not something learned from a book. It is earned through countless lifetimes of navigating the dizzying highs and crushing lows of ego-based living. In your final life cycle, authenticity replaces performance. You stop trying to impress, persuade, or dominate. You become gentle. You smile more. You forgive faster. And the beautiful irony is that this quiet power, free from the demands of the ego, becomes magnetic to others. If you feel yourself no longer caring who gets the credit, who wins the argument, or who looks better, you may be standing at the very edge of liberation, where the self becomes no self, and true freedom finally begins. 7. The deep sense of purpose without needing to know why. Another profound and subtle sign that your soul is nearing its final reincarnation is the presence of a deep, inner sense of purpose, even if you cannot logically explain it or articulate it to others. This purpose does not come from ambition, societal expectations, or a desire for fame. It comes from a much deeper place within, like a soft, unwavering magnetic pull guiding your every step. It's not a purpose you would write on a resume. It is a current of energy that flows through you, a quiet hum beneath the noise of daily life that simply says, you are on the right path. This inner compass, this inexplicable yet undeniable sense of purpose, is just one of the more advanced signs. It points towards a life lived not for the ego, but for the soul's final expression. As we continue, we will explore the even more subtle indicators that your soul is preparing for its ultimate graduation, from the way you view conflict and forgiveness, to the very nature of the relationships you attract, and finally, the quiet disappearance of fear itself. In our last segment, we touched upon the quiet, inner sense of purpose that begins to guide an evolving soul, a purpose that feels less like an ambition and more like a gentle, irresistible current. You may not know precisely where this current leads, but you trust it completely. There is a persistent feeling that you are here for something important, not in the traditional sense of becoming famous or wealthy, but in the spiritual sense of contributing to healing, awakening, or the quiet transformation of consciousness on this planet. Even if your life seems ordinary or simple from the outside, deep inside, you feel as if your very presence matters. You begin to truly sense that every action, every word, and every intention carries a subtle but potent ripple effect into the universe. You realize that living with kindness, honesty, and moment-to-moment awareness is, in itself, a sacred mission. In Buddhism, This intuitive drive is deeply connected to your Dharma, your soul's true and unique path. Unlike karma, which binds us to cycles of cause and effect, Dharma is what liberates us. When you begin aligning with your Dharma, your choices stop being about what is expected of you by society and start being about what feels profoundly right on a soul level. Aligning with your Dharma feels less like making a decision and more like coming home to yourself. You may suddenly feel drawn to certain places, people, or practices without a single logical reason. You might take detours in life that others cannot understand, but you know, with an unshakable certainty, that they are meaningful, even sacred. This inner compass is incredibly strong during your final life. You may no longer feel that desperate, anxious need for clarity or long-term plans. You simply trust that your path is unfolding exactly as it should. Even during confusing or painful times, a quiet voice within assures you to keep going, and you do, because you are no longer operating on the fuel of fear, but on a deep faith in the unseen wisdom of the universe. You begin to care less about the metrics of success and more about the quality of your impact. Whether you're speaking with a stranger, raising a child, planting a garden, or meditating in silence, you feel as though you are contributing to something far bigger than your small self. It's the difference between rowing frantically against the current and learning to steer a vessel that is already being carried by the river of existence. People in their final life cycles often express this through quiet service. Whether teaching, healing, creating, or simply radiating calm and presence, your purpose becomes less about doing and more about being true, being present, being love. If you have ever felt that quiet but powerful pull to live meaningfully without needing to explain why, your soul may be nearing its final, beautiful destination. 8. Heightened intuition and inner knowing. A clear and compelling sign that you are in your last life cycle is the undeniable rise of heightened intuition and a profound inner knowing. This is not just about occasional gut feelings or lucky hunches. It is a consistent, deep trust in your own inner guidance, which often defies logical reasoning or the norms of society. Imagine that for lifetimes, you navigated the world using maps drawn by others, your parents, your culture, your teachers. Now, in this final journey, you discover an infallible inner compass. The old maps are no longer needed. In many previous lives, you might have relied heavily on external validation, expert opinions, or social rules to find your way. But as your soul nears enlightenment, a powerful shift occurs. You begin to recognize that the most reliable, most trustworthy guidance system already exists within you. This inner knowing often manifests as a sudden, piercing clarity about decisions, people, or situations. You may have moments where you just know something is true before you have the evidence, or you understand the true nature of a problem without needing much explanation. This is not magic. This is your higher self communicating through the refined channel of intuition. A direct connection to the deep wisdom accumulated through countless lifetimes. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of mindfulness and insight meditation, vipassana, to develop this intuitive awareness. In your final life cycle, this practice becomes almost effortless because the constant static of the ego and the clamor of desire have less and less hold on your consciousness. You become more attuned to subtle signs, synchronicities, and the gentle whispers of your soul. This heightened intuition can bring clear warnings, gentle nudges, or moments of deep peace that confirm you are on the right path. You might find yourself avoiding toxic people or situations simply because your inner compass steers you away with a feeling of unease. Conversely, you may feel an inexplicable pull towards certain experiences or people, and trusting this pull always leads to growth, healing, or a necessary lesson. This is not you becoming psychic. This is you becoming fully human, attuned to the subtle language of the universe. If you find that your intuition rarely leads you astray and that your inner voice is louder, clearer, and more trustworthy than ever before, it may be a powerful sign that your soul is preparing to transcend the cycle of rebirth. 9. A growing compassion for all life. A defining hallmark of a soul in its last life cycle is the blossoming of a boundless, unconditional compassion, not only for your friends and family, but for every living being on earth. This compassion is not selective. It is not a transaction. It flows naturally and deeply from a heart that has been softened over eons. As you evolve spiritually, you start to recognize with absolute clarity that all beings, humans, animals, even plants, are interconnected threads in the same magnificent, universal fabric. The Buddha taught that compassion, karuna, and loving kindness, metta, are the highest virtues, and souls nearing enlightenment embody these qualities effortlessly. You may find yourself feeling an overwhelming, unprompted desire to alleviate the suffering of others, not because of a sense of obligation or duty, but because of a genuine, overflowing love. You become more patient with human flaws, more tolerant of mistakes, and far more willing to forgive. This boundless compassion extends even to those who have hurt you or others. It's not that you condone their actions, it's that you see the deep wound, the profound ignorance from which their harmful actions sprang. You see their suffering, and your heart naturally opens. This shift can transform your daily life into removing meditation, small acts of kindness, such as helping a stranger, comforting a friend, or caring for an animal, bring you a deep and lasting fulfillment that no material gain ever could. You may also find yourself drawn to causes that promote peace, justice, or environmental protection, seeing the earth itself as a living being deserving of care. But even if your life remains quiet, your heart holds a sacred, unwavering tenderness for all of life. Such expansive, all-encompassing compassion is a clear sign that your soul is nearing the end of samsara. You are preparing to transcend the narrow confines of selfish desires and become one with universal love and truth. If you notice your heart opening wider each day, and your urge to care deeply for all beings growing ever stronger, know that you are walking the final, most beautiful path toward awakening. 10. A sense of readiness to let go. The final and perhaps most profound sign that you are in your last life cycle is a deep, peaceful sense of readiness to let go. This is not just letting go of possessions or relationships, but of life itself. It is crucial to understand that this readiness does not come from despair, depression, or hopelessness. Instead, it flows from the deep, experiential understanding that this life is a temporary journey and that the soul's ultimate goal is liberation from the very cycle of birth and death. You may notice the fading fear of death. It is replaced by a peaceful curiosity about what comes next. The great unknown no longer terrifies you because you have come to trust the infinite wisdom of existence itself. You might find yourself thinking less about what if and more about simply what is. The tight grip of attachment to your physical body, your identity, and your past experiences begins to dissolve. Buddhism teaches that the greatest liberation is to be free from attachment, not only to things, but to the very idea of a fixed, separate self. When your soul is nearing enlightenment, you embrace this teaching not as a philosophy, but as a living reality. You begin to understand that clinging to life, to fears, to regrets, or to desires is the engine of suffering. In its place, you cultivate acceptance, surrender, and a quiet faith. This sign can manifest in subtle, beautiful ways. A calm acceptance of your body's changes as it ages, a gentle and final farewell to old grudges you once held so tightly, or an ease in discussing the topic of death openly and without fear. You may feel a strong, unanxious urge to put your affairs in order, not out of worry, but out of a desire for clarity and peace. This readiness is not about giving up. It is about graduating. It is the soul's way of saying, I have learned my lessons. I am complete with this cycle. I am ready to move on. It is the soul packing its final bags, not with sadness for the journey's end, but with a quiet, peaceful excitement for its true homecoming. It is the last sacred step before crossing the threshold into nirvana, the final freedom from suffering, rebirth, and delusion. If this feeling resonates in the deepest part of your being, it may mean your soul is on the verge of completing its long, arduous, and beautiful spiritual journey. A new, eternal chapter awaits. Recognizing these 10 profound signs within yourself is a powerful step toward understanding your spiritual path through the lens of timeless Buddhist wisdom. To be in your last life cycle means your soul has traversed countless lifetimes, diligently overcoming the immense gravity of karma, ego, and delusion. It means you are approaching the final liberation, nirvana, where all suffering ends and an eternal, unshakable peace begins. These signs, from a deep disinterest in materialism to a peaceful readiness to let go of life itself, are not random occurrences. They are the soul's way of signaling that it has learned its lessons and is preparing to transcend the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. You have learned the lessons of scarcity, and now you crave simplicity. You have learned the lessons of the ego, and now you embrace humility. You have learned the lessons of separation, and now you embody compassion. The more you embrace these signs, the more you align with your true nature, which has always been pure awareness, boundless love, and infinite peace. Your final life is a sacred and precious opportunity. It invites you to cultivate stillness, deepen your compassion, and awaken fully to the luminous beauty of the present moment. This journey may be quiet, it may be lonely at times, but it is also the most meaningful imaginable, for it leads to the ultimate freedom from all suffering. If you recognize your own story in these signs, honor them, listen to your soul's quiet wisdom, walk gently but confidently toward your own magnificent awakening. The path is unfolding before you, and your final liberation is within reach. If this exploration of the soul's final journey resonated with you, we invite you to continue this path of discovery with us. This channel is a sanctuary for old souls and seekers of truth. Click the subscribe button and activate the bell, not to add more noise to your life, but to receive a quiet reminder of the wisdom that already exists within you. Please share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. Your journey is an inspiration to us all. Let us walk this sacred path together. Thank you for your presence.